Hello everyone, back tuning in to the July 2016 CFS 6 months look ahead just for fun. So we're going to go 6 months ahead with the long range CFS model, which is going to take us from August next month through to January 2017 with this update. Now, of course, the first couple of months, there is some merit behind what we're doing. So August, September, yes, we can think about those months of having some scientific merit. As we get to sort of 3-4 months, there's a big health warning. 5-6 months away, it really is in the realm of just for fun, and don't take it too seriously. But the chances are there, so you might as well use it. And I know a lot of you do enjoy the CFS 6 months look ahead, so well, that's what we're going to do for today. Before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on the page. So you can have a browse widgets and click through the links. You'll be helping us to pay for our website. Thanks so much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages. They own that content. When you watch me close back up again, it does help to pay for Gasworthy's. More importantly than that is the charity fundraiser that we are running. So throughout July, we started this at the beginning of the month. Throughout July, we are raising money for the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance. It means a huge amount for myself and my family. Unfortunately, my father passed away at the start of the year, and there was a huge resuscitation. Everything went suddenly. There's a huge resuscitation effort that was involved when he had a sudden cardiac arrest. And part of that was the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance. They did manage to resuscitate him and get him to hospital, but fortunately, being in cardiac arrest for so long that they couldn't do much for him, really, at the hospital. And a few days later, we lost him. But it wasn't for the want of trying, and the folks at Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance, amongst the other emergency services, pulled out all the stops for it. Now, all those other emergency services are paid for by via the NHS, of course, via the government. But the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance, just like all the other air ambulances throughout the country, they do not get money from the taxpayer or from the National Health Service. They are reliant completely on voluntary donations. They're a charity, essentially, and they rely on your charitable donations. So, to way of saying thank you and try and bring something positive out of my dad's death, I thought we would, through July, raise a bit of money. And I set the target at £200. Had to raise that within one day. So I set it to £500. Had to raise that again. The current target is £750. And at the moment, our amount that we have had donated stands at £981.17. A phenomenal amount of money. It was way more than I was expecting when I started this. A big, big thank you to the 42 donors that have given us this fantastic amount of money. Now, there's still plenty of time to donate. We're not going to be running this through to the end of the month. I would just ask if you enjoy what we do at Gasworthy's. All the videos, all the written posts, everything is free of charge. Terry Scully, what he does is free of charge. We rely on the ads, and as far as I'm concerned, that's where we're going to be staying. I don't see us moving towards a pay-per-view or subscription model at any point in the future. So if you enjoy what we do here at the website, I just ask that you give us a little bit of a donation for this cause. That means so much to myself and my family. There's two ways of donating to this. You can either do it through our Just Giving page. I'll leave the link to the Just Giving page on in the description box on YouTube. There's also links across Gasworthy's, of course. So click the link. You'll come to our Just Giving page. This is it. You'll be greeted by the Gasworthy's logo, and it says Gavin's page, just so that you know that this is our page. And to donate, you just click this yellow button here that says donate. Take you to another page where you put in your card details very safely, very securely, and that's one way of sending us your donation. The other way of doing it is to text, and all you have to do with that is use our code, which is GWVS77, with the amount you would like to donate. It can be anything from £1 upwards, and text that to 770, and again, that will go straight to the air ambulance via Just Giving. They send the money on. I think they send it on immediately. So, huge thank you to all of you who have donated. Big thank you to all of you who are still donating. We're really doing something special here for the air ambulance. A big thank you to everybody for doing that. Right, better get on with CFS 6 months look ahead then, and we're going to start off with the 700 millibar height anomalies as always for the next 6 months, and then have a look at corresponding temperature and corresponding precipitation anomalies. Now, just to reiterate, because I've gone on quite a bit about the charity event, so better just reiterate about CFS 6 months look ahead. It is just for fun, it isn't to be relied upon. Charts are there, so we might as well use them, but don't necessarily take things too seriously, especially if you get through towards the latter stages of the update. I'm telling you that again, really, because when we get to the last stage of it, it does get quite interesting, but we'll have a look at that when we get to it. Right, let's start with the 700 millibar height anomalies for August then. And in theory, this should be sort of the most reliable month, if you like, because it's only 1 month away. As you know, 500 millibar heights extrapolates to low pressure, and yellow, the bright curves extrapolates to high pressure. So what the model is doing for August, it's placing a ridge here over central parts of Europe, and if we go over here as well, it's placing a ridge there. There's some sort of trough in the Atlantic, but it's quite a weak one. I think the jet stream's running through the country and probably going a bit like that. So it could be okay, that, especially for the south and east. I think there's a fair amount of dry weather. I'd be surprised if it's all that warm as well. Although this trough doesn't look much, I suspect this is going to dig down into that sort of zone and allow the jet stream to do something a bit like that. So in theory, we could drag up southerly type influences. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is quite a warm month. Now, it doesn't really show it a warm average. I'm giving that away a little bit. When it comes to temperature anomalies, it won't show anything particularly exciting. But just keep in mind that that could be a warmish setup that we see there in August. Sometimes you have to interpret these charts a little bit. That's in complete contrast to September. Look what's happening in September. A deep trough of low pressure is forming around Iceland and in the Atlantic. Ridge is going a long way down to the south, and the jet streams coming through the country like that. So that's an unsettled September. That would be wet, above average rainfall, I would have thought, maybe quite windy at times, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the most unsettled September that we've had for quite a long while. Remember, September tends to be quite anticyclonic sort of month. So that would be quite surprising. It's been a long while. I think 2012, maybe 2008. Not sure, but it seems a while since we've had a really unsettled September. And a very wet September. I think you have to go back to the year 2000 for that. So quite an unusual pattern it's showing there for September. Early onset of autumn, perhaps. Into October, and it's hard to decipher too much from this, but clearly we've got some ridging down to the south through the Azores and going in towards Spain. There's not a great deal else to go on, but I would have thought the jet stream is probably coming through the country like that. Its average heights, which of course in October is going to be relatively unsettled. So I would suspect that's a westerly October. Could be wet at times. Quite an unsettled month, I would have thought, is being predicted there. Certainly no sign of any particular ridging. That's a long way away from us in the middle part of the Atlantic. So I would have thought above that ridging, we've probably got quite a strong jet stream coming through the country, albeit it isn't as unsettled signal as we see for September. But nevertheless, I think that's probably quite a Atlantic-driven October. Now, November looks a little bit interesting. This is going out and extended now, so we're up to 4 months away. So, pinch of salt required, really. But November does look quite interesting in that it's placing this ridge through central parts of Europe and extending it down into the Med. So I would have thought the jet stream, we've got ridging there, I would have thought the jet stream is probably doing something a bit like that. It's bound to be a trough just there, and then the jet stream rises north and does something like that. So that could be a very mild month in November. It's 4 months away, so it's just for fun, really. But I think we're probably dragging up some very mild air from the south and the southwest with that one. It could be fairly dry as well in the south, but a very mild looking signal, that one, for November. And then we go into December, and things are looking quite interesting again. What's happening now is that we've got a very deep trough down to the southwest of the country. And then I'm sure you've probably noticed all of this yellow that's appearing over the polar field. That looks like northern blocking there around Greenland and extending over towards Scandinavia. Also, we've got some ridging coming down in towards Newfoundland. It's a very complicated pattern. So the jet stream, there's probably some sort of trough in eastern parts of America as well. So the jet stream's probably doing something a bit like this. And it's in that sort of a motion. Now, that in its own terms, it's 5 months away, of course, so it's just for fun. That in its own terms isn't a cold scenario, because what's going to be happening there is that we're probably dragging up the air in a southerly direction, a bit like that, with this trough down to the southwest. But only a very, very slight adjustment would really plunge us into a cold scenario. If we took that area below average heights to the east and centered it around here, then with all of this blocking, of course, up to the north, we'll very quickly open the door to northerly. So when I'm going to show you the temperature anomaly for December, it'll look warmer than average, but it really isn't all that close from being colder than average. And then this is January. This is January 2017. It's 6 months away, so of course it isn't to be relied upon whatsoever. But just look at that. If you want a cold January, well, that's it. You've got all of this red up here, very extensive blocking sitting to the north of us. That's really strong, above average heights, high pressure to the north across the northern latitudes. Again, it goes over here into the north of Scandinavia. As you tend to find, there's a trough underneath it. The model is placing that trough across Central Europe and Northern Italy. Between those two areas, we would undoubtedly be opening the door to easterly winds. So that's a cold, potentially snowy scenario that we see there for January. Really, really interesting what model is doing there. I would expect that to be replaced over the next 2 or 3 updates. But just this once, the CFS is playing ball with us, and cold lovers, feast your eyes on that. It looks very good. Right, let's have a look at the temperature anomalies that go with these charts then. So for August, we've just got average temperatures, really no sign of a great deviation. But as I say, I think it could be that we've got low pressure digging down in that sort of motion, which sends the jet stream a bit like that, and will probably allow us to draw up air from southerly southeasterly influences. So I reckon that could be warmer than that is suggesting. Just keep that in back of mind. It could be warmer than that one indicates. September looks generally average. Remember, in September we've got a really big trough of low pressure in the Atlantic, and we're bringing in a jet stream. So I would have thought westerlies in September are going to generally be quite cool. So I would have thought that's probably quite a cool month, actually, a bit cooler than that suggests. I would go for cooler than average September based on what the model is trying to do. October, that one just comes out as average as well. Again, very often with CFS, temperature and precipitation anomalies, you have to interpret them from what you see on the 500 millibar height. So I don't think it's got much of a signal for temperatures. Remember, we thought it's probably quite a westerly month again in October. We've got this ridging in this sort of zone, and I think we're bringing the jet stream through. That could be a bit milder than average in October. It could be near normal, I suppose. So not a great temperature signal for October. November goes significantly milder than average, and that makes sense. There's ridging here through Central Europe and extends down into that sort of zone, which has the effect of pulling the jet stream up and then down rather like that. So the air is dragged up from probably the tropical Atlantic, maybe the Mediterranean. You expect a very mild November on the setup that the model is seeing for the 700 millibar heights. And then December, well, look how warm Europe is. I'm not at all sure about that. Very mild looking signal for Europe in December. What's happening is that we've got lots of ridging getting going up here, and again up here. And then there's low pressure down here. So it's quite a complicated one. The jet stream, I suppose, does something a bit like that. But I think that warm anomaly is too extensively, with quite a bit of blocking being signalled across the northern latitude. Remember, there's high pressure up here. Somewhere, I'm sure, we'll be getting a push of cold air out of the Arctic. Now, it makes sense that it's probably not for us, because we've got this low pressure down here. So that makes sense. It's still fairly Atlantic driven for us in December. But I would have thought Eastern Europe, Northeastern Europe would be significantly colder than that. And I think what we see here is the warm bias at work, really, from the model in December. And then finally we go through to January. Now this should be a lot colder than this is suggesting again. So on the basis of the height anomalies, we've got warm and average anomalies for Iceland and Greenland, which makes sense, and very warm up towards Svalbard. That all makes sense because there's loads of blocking. All this area is covered with extensive northern blocking. But where's the cold anomalies? Because with so much northern blocking, you're going to be pushing out cold air out of the northern latitudes in that sort of motion. So where are the cold anomalies? If it came off as the model is predicting, again, I'll show you that anomaly for January from the model. There it is. If it came off like that, it would undoubtedly be a colder than average January across many parts of Europe, and particularly so, I would have thought, for northern Europe. Could really be plunged into the freezer in January with so much northern blocking. So the temperature anomaly, again, it's showing the mild bias from the model. I'm not sure how you get a temperature anomaly like that with a 700 millibar height anomaly like that. It doesn't make sense. It would be significantly colder than that is showing. Finally, have a look at precipitation. I know this is going on for quite some time. It is an interesting update. We don't normally get cold-looking charts from the CFS V2, so that's the reason I'm going on a little bit longer. Precipitation anomalies then for August. So it's looking a bit wetter than average in the north and west of Scotland, a bit drier than average across southwestern parts of England. Overall, not a great deviation for the precipitation for August. September looks wetter than average, especially in the north and west. That makes sense. I would suspect all places probably finish up with a wet month. Remember, the jet stream coming through the country with lots of areas of low pressure in the Atlantic. So it makes sense. It's Atlantic-driven, wet, and I would have thought probably quite cool month. Early autumn conditions. October, I think this gives the game away a little bit for the pattern for October. That's also looking wetter than average, above average precipitation. Remember, in October, again, I think we're bringing the jet stream through the country, albeit there's ridging down here. So September, October, both looking really quite unsettled months with above average rainfall. November, I would have thought, should be a bit drier than this is suggesting. Remember, the pattern has high pressure down through here. It's wetter than average for Norway, and that's because jet stream is doing something like that. So mild and dryish, I would have thought, in November. December, 5 months away, so just for fun, but December looks drier than average in the north, wetter than average down to the south. That's indicative of a southerly tracking jet stream. We're probably bringing the jet stream into that sort of zone. That's a bit too far south. We're probably bringing the jet stream down a bit like that. Remember, there's a complicating factor with low pressure around here, which probably draws the air up from the south for us. It's close to being a cold month. And particularly for the north, you could well get some colder conditions there. And then January, well, again, not a huge amount to go on, 6 months away, but look how dry it is across Norway and into Sweden. That's because there's an area of high pressure up there, and also extends to there as well, of course. Scotland indicated to be drier than average. That's tying in with the northern blocking, I think. So again, high pressure blocking through there. To the south of us, it's wetter across many southern parts of France, and I think we're opening the door to easterly winds. So the temperature anomaly should be significantly colder than the model is indicating there in January. So a couple of really interesting months to finish off with for December and January. Signs that we've got northern blocking getting going. How seriously should we take this? Well, as I said at the start, it is really just for fun. It isn't to be getting excited about at this stage. But I will show you the charts for when I did the CFS 6-month look ahead in July last year. So I've been reviewing CFS 6-month look ahead from July 2015. I'll show you the 700 millibar height anomalies that we had at this time last year. So this is how November 2015 was shaping up in July 2015. Very Atlantic driven, high pressure around Spain and Iberia, low pressure, deep low pressure across Iceland, south of Greenland, and bring the jet stream through. So mild, wet, windy. December 2015. Actually, that's got to be wrong, I think. So we've gone to January 2016. I wanted to show you December 2015, but I'm not going to be able to do that. So this is how January 2016 was looking in July 2015. I hope you're bearing with this. So this was generated this time last year. It was for January 2016, so it would have been 6 months into the future. And, well, look at that. Low pressure to northwest Scotland, strong ridging across North Africa and extending up into Central Europe. The jet stream will be going something like that. I can tell you the signal for December at this point last year was very similar as well. So actually, and I've never known it to happen before, I have to say, but actually at this point last year, the CFS model had got the pattern for the winter. We didn't believe it at the time. We didn't believe it could get that bad, but it never deviated. It never deviated through the rest of the updates that we did. I'm sure you remember I kept telling you that if you wanted cold weather to get behind the stage long, because month after month after month it just kept going with the same pattern. And as early as July 2015, it had more or less the pattern for the winter of 2015-2016. Now, it may be that that was just a coincidence. It was just the model coincided with how the pattern finished up. It could well be that this year is going to be very, very different. And I would expect, and I'd say that that 700 millibar height only for January, I would really expect that to look significantly different next month. If it doesn't, and then we can carry that through to September and October, of course, we can start getting a little bit more excited, I think. But at this stage, despite the fact that the model had the winter pattern pinned down at this point last year, at this stage, I would say, don't get excited, and just come back next month and expect, but not necessarily guaranteeing, but expect to see that January, very, very block pattern January, expect to see it toned down a little bit. Right, very interesting update from CFS. Anyway, it doesn't normally give us much to enjoy from a cold perspective, but that January chart really was quite interesting. Right, how long have I been going on for? It seems like a long while. 22 minutes, so it's a bit of a long one than normal. Normally they're under 20 minutes, but I think it deserved to be extended a little bit this month. Right, CFS 6-month look ahead for August. Next month. Next week, we're going to be having a look at some analogues for the autumn. Our lovely friend James Ackrell has given us some analogues for autumn. We'll be looking at those next week on Sunday at Gabs. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.